Now, finally, the man of the week, Gayton McKenzie, the guy who called Bokiviek organizers apartheid nostalgists, who calls out corruption even though he's a former armed robber and is accused of having drug connections by a cell inmate, and who this week revealed that his Department of Sport, Arts and Culture spent an estimated 31 million rand of South African taxpayer money, that's your money, on a delegation to the 2026 FIFA World Cup. 31 million rand. I want to contextualize that number properly because I think the rand amount lands differently depending on what you compare it to. 31 million rand is enough to build multiple fully equipped multi-purpose community sports centers in underserved communities. I'm talking about sports because he's the Minister of Sports. It is enough to fund youth development academies in multiple provinces for several years. It is enough to provide full bursaries for hundreds of talented young South African athletes who have the ability to compete internationally, but who cannot afford the development pathway that gets them there. It is enough to repair and upgrade sports facilities in dozens of townships and rural communities where crumbling infrastructure is currently denying young people access to organized sport entirely, and that is not a new story to South Africa. These are not abstract comparisons that I have invented to make a political point. These are the stated priorities of the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture under Gayton McKenzie's own leadership. He has spoken about transformation. He's the guy that talks about access, youth development, and community sport infrastructure. And he talks about it with genuine passion in multiple public forums. He has criticized wasteful expenditure in sport administration himself. He criticized Mama Joy. He pulled the plug on state-funded support for her, the famous Bafana superfan who's seen like supporting the national team at tournaments across the continent at her own expense, not at her own expense for years because she was funded, specifically on the grounds that the department could not fund private individuals attending sporting events. He spoke against Mama Joy. He made that call explicitly in terms of the principle that taxpayer money for sport should go to sport development and not to individual supporters. And then he spends 31 million rand taking 20 fans and 20 artists and a 14-member departmental project team to the FIFA World Cup in hospitality suites. The full breakdown of the 30,945,370 rand and 15 cents that his department confirmed spending covers international travel, accommodation, hospitality suites, match tickets, Legends exhibition match, and nation branding initiatives. McKenzie's own travel and that of his two support staff and the Director General came to approximately 7.8 million rand of the total. The remaining 23 million or so went to the delegation's other components. It was used for other things. He said the figure may increase or decrease once invoices are fully reconciled. He has promised to provide a traveler-by-traveler breakdown of each and every single rand spent once the reconciliation is complete. His argument in defense of the expenditure has three parts. Number one, that South African artists deserve a presence on international cultural stages, and that the World Cup provided a platform that would have been dominated by artists from other countries if South Africa did not actively participate. Two, that nation branding has legitimate economic value, and that South Africa's visibility at a tournament co-hosted partly by Mexico, a BRICS partner and close diplomatic ally, serves the country's long-term international positioning. Three, that members should not be expected to fly economy class on international government business because the working conditions of a minister on an official trip require business class travel to remain functional. Now, I want to engage with each of these fairly before I tell you what to think. On the artist's argument, there is genuine merit to the idea that, South African music and culture deserve international platforms and that government can legitimately invest and should legitimately invest in creating those platforms. Look, I'm not dumb. South African artists have historically been underrepresented at major international sporting events, despite the quality and distinctiveness of our cultural output. If the 20 artists who attended performed for international audiences in ways that created genuine lasting visibility for South African music, as a musician myself, I can say that that has value that is difficult to quantify precisely, but that is not imaginary. On nation branding, the same logic applies. South Africa's reputation in international markets affects investment decisions and tourism patterns in ways that have real economic downstream effects. Being visible at the biggest sporting event in the world is not without value. And on ministerial level, the practical reality is that senior government officials on official international business do travel business class across governments globally, and that this is not unique to McKenzie or South Africa. Fine. But here is what I cannot reconcile with those defenses. Here is what confuses me. The gap between the principle McKenzie applied to Mama Joy Chauke and the principle he applied to himself and his delegation is not a small gap. It is a 31 million rand gap. And the question of whether the specific combination of hospitality suites, 20 fans, 20 artists, and a 14-person project team represents the most efficient possible use of 31 million rand to achieve the stated goals of artist visibility and nation branding is one that deserves a detailed public answer rather than a promise of receipts to follow. ActionSA MP Dereline James asked the most precise question about this. She said communities across the country lack basic sporting facilities. Young South Africans are denied opportunities because of crumbling infrastructure. She asked whether 31 million rand represents value for money in that context. The question does not have a comfortable answer for Gayton McKenzie. And you might be a fan of Gayton McKenzie, but listen to this. The fact that he is the same minister who this week called Bokkie Wieck organizers apartheid nostalgists, the same week defending spending 31 million rand on hospitality suites at a tournament his department attended with 20 fans and 20 artists, creates a picture that South Africans are entitled to look at carefully and draw their own conclusions from. I have genuine respect for Gayton McKenzie in many contexts. I have said that before on this channel. He is more direct and more honest than most cabinet ministers we have seen in action. But directly and honestly calling for children at a community sports tournament to be blacklisted, killing their dreams, while spending 31 million of their parents' taxes on hospitality suites and artist delegations to a World Cup are two things that sit very uncomfortably next to each other. And South Africa deserves better than a promise that the receipts are coming. Like, share, and subscribe if you think Summer Sambit is the fastest growing YouTuber in South Africa. I'll see you next time.